one we hadn't seen for almost a year.
In hockey,
well, other than the fight last night, of course, which is the big story, right? Yeah. And
did you win?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. I'm not going to tell you how much. Here's Doug with the sports.
Thank you, Francis, and good evening, everyone. You know, Canada doesn't really have a new middleweight boxing champion today. What the country has is a former champion returned to a throne he believes he should never have lost. It was a sweet moment for Ralph Hollett at the Metro Center last night, the 27-year-old Haligonian unleashing a brutal two-fisted attack that Chris Clarke simply could not repel. Let's take a look now at the fight highlights.
From the opening bell, Ralph Hollett's strategy was obvious. Attack Clarke, swarm all over him, tie him up on the ropes, punish his body. In other words, don't let Chris Clarke box because that is what he does best. And as you'll see, the strategy worked. This was action in round 2. Hollett wearing the red trunks, pursuing Clarke relentlessly and inflicting damage. Clarke seemed unprepared for the savage onslaught, unable to cope with it. And finally, he succumbed to a brutal right-left-right combination that left him groggy and on the canvas. There was absolute pandemonium in the Metro Center at this point, and as referee Herb McMullen dutifully administered the count, the crowd, while Hollett's cornerman and Hollett himself sensed that the kill was near. In fact, Ralph Hollett could scarcely contain himself as he strained to take up the battle once again. It's interesting to recall that when Hollett lost to Clarke in their initial meeting back in April, he was accused of not having fought his fight. Hollett has always carried the brawler label. Indeed, in this fight, he did brawl. The difference is that it was a controlled form of brawling. Virtually every punch thrown with a purpose and with a target. And of course, it goes without saying that veteran trainer Tom McCluskey had much to do with that. After Chris Clarke's first trip to the canvas, an encore performance seemed inevitable. And it came a minute and 30 seconds into the round. Again, a crashing right hand initiated the knockdown, Hollett following up in buzzsaw fashion that spat defiance at all resistance. Ralph Hollett was not to be denied. Seldom have I seen an athlete in such superb condition. Seldom have I seen an athlete more determined, more dogged in pursuit of a goal. As referee McMullen waved the combatants back into action, there was not a soul in the house that doubted the outcome nor the means by which it would be achieved. Chris Clarke, who was quoted before the fight as saying he felt he could tear a house down, was himself torn down. Ralph Hollett punching and slamming and pulling himself back to the Canadian middleweight crown he so much wanted to wear for a second time in his young career. Referee McMullen finally stopped it. Amid the wild commotion and congratulating and backslapping that accompanies all winners, our own Don Martin managed to corner Hollett. The new champion informed all of us just how he'd managed to do it.
I definitely feel good. I trained very hard for this fight. I've been training since the last fight. For 5 months I've been training. The longer they made me wait, the more madder I got. So it's their disadvantage that they made me wait. They should have had the fight right away.
It looked to me when the fight first started that you were going after the body.
Yeah, I knew he had a weak body. I heard him in the last fight with body shots. We watched films and I saw where I hurt him. I didn't realize that at the time due to inexperience. I'm not an experienced fighter. And I realized he never had a strong body. Same with Alan. Alan don't have a strong body. Probably runs in their family.
A strong body and a strong will. That is Ralph Hollett, Canada's old and new middleweight boxing champion.
To throw this right in, I had to move, you know. It's something I don't like to do, but in order to win the fight, I had to move. That was it.
Did Benny Briscoe surprise you tonight?
No way. No, we knew he was tough. He'd never been knocked out. Man takes a hell of a punch. He had the hardest hit I ever felt. I'll tell you that. Well, I got the proof.
Did he hurt you at all tonight?
No, he did. Never hurt me once.
Other than your right hand?
No.
I talked with Ralph Hollett just a few minutes ago. He tells me he'll be wearing a fiberglass cast that stays on for at least 3 weeks, and after that, in early July, look for Hollett to go after the British Commonwealth title. Semi-final of that boxing card last night, Ricky Anderson of Halifax made his professional debut. He beat Oral Brady of Toronto. The referee stopped the fight in the 5th round. He just didn't want to fight anymore. Very quickly, French Open tennis.
It's time for the sports with Paul Lethbridge, and I understand that our at the Pan Am Games, we're winning on the field of competition, but losing in the medical room.
Yeah, we did it again, apparently, Dave. Good evening, everyone. Right off the top, let's just say this has been a busy day. First, we go to the Pan Am Games in Venezuela, where Canada's medal count just shrunk by 5. You see, 2 of our athletes apparently failed dope tests after their events. Both of them weightlifters, Guy Gavreau and Michel Ville of Quebec. But on a positive note, one of our maritime athletes, rower Robert Mills of Dartmouth, has won a pair of gold medals for Canada. One of the double sculls, the other, of course, coming in quadruple sculls. Way to go, Robert. And this story came across our wire here at AT Sports just a little bit earlier. Lee Elia, the manager of the Chicago Cubs and a former player with Kentville of the Nova Scotia Senior League, has been fired as manager of the baseball club. Charlie Fox takes over immediately. Now then, to other baseball stuff. The Expos of Montreal, 2.5 games back of National East Division leaders Philadelphia. They split a pair with San Diego yesterday, winning 3-0, losing the nightcap 5-2. And the Blue Jays, on the strength of this Cliff Johnson blast off the wall in Boston's Fenway Park, managed to rally and put together a 7-3 win over the Red Sox. They stay within a game and a half of Baltimore and Milwaukee in the American League East race. The Jays finish out in Boston tonight. Montreal goes to Los Angeles. And then there's the latest Ralph Hollett controversy. Ralph has heard he's being stripped of his Canadian middleweight boxing title. You see, Ralph was supposed to defend his Canadian crown on or before August 31st of this year. He won't be able to because he's suspended for at least 90 days, possibly 180 days, because he was TKO'd by Marciano Bernardi last month. Now, he has to sit out the usual waiting period because of that. Ralph is not very happy about this.
Because I lost, I think if I had won, I don't think they would have stripped me. But because I lost, and it was my third in a row, you know, sometimes when you're down, people like to kick you when you're down, and I think that's what they're doing.
And Ralph says he's considering going back to kickboxing. He's thinking about it. In the meantime, retirement is not out of the question. ATV Sports talked to the Canadian Professional Boxers Federation today, and they say Alex Hilton and Wayne Complete can fight each other if they want to for the vacant title. As we said, it was a busy weekend, just finished. Lots of stuff to go to. First, we'll go to the Toronto, where the Martina Navratilova won the Players Tennis Challenge, better known as the Canadian Women's Open. The world's #1 ranked tennis player dominated yesterday's deciding set of the women's final, sweeping to a 6-1 victory for her 4th decision over Chris Evert Lloyd in as many meetings this year.
Jarvis Sugden threw in the towel, and referee Guy Jutras jumped in to stop the fight. It was a shocker of an ending which caught the record crowd of 7,300 at the Paul Sauvé Center completely by surprise. Mello, who had looked hurt, recovered very quickly and was visibly disappointed in having lost his 3rd try at the Canadian Middleweight Championship on a TKO. Hollett, the Canadian kickbox champion with only 13 pro fights, leapt around the ring in joy.
Ralph Hollett's first successful title defense.
On last night's card was a middleweight affair. Canadian champion Ralph Hollett of Halifax in the red trunks versus Windsor, Ontario's Danny Jones. And quite frankly, this fight was a disappointment, certainly from the Hollett point of view. After having looked so devastating in his last outing, a fight which saw him regain the middleweight crown from Chris Clarke, Hollett last night was the old Hollett, the brawler, the slugger, and he made Danny Jones appear to be a much better fighter than he really is. Nevertheless, Hollett did win the fight, a brutal right cross, initiating Jones' first trip to the canvas in the 8th round. Referee Honey Carvery moves in to administer the count, and while Jones does not appear to be seriously hurt, his fate has been sealed. For if there is one thing that Ralph Hollett does well, it is to take advantage of a situation, to destroy a man he has in trouble. A left hand, a right hand, a left hand, a right hand. Although this angle doesn't show it, the Jones corner has thrown the towel in, and it's all over. An unimpressive victory, but a victory nevertheless for Ralph Hollett, a TKO in the 8th round over Windsor, Ontario's Danny Jones. Winners.
Oh, qui va de ses meilleurs coups et Marcotte est encore une fois en sérieuse difficulté dans les câbles. Et là, Hagen qui sépare les deux hommes. Ralph Hollett, qui lentement mais sûrement reprend l'initiative.
Et il ne semble pas pressé du tout.
Oh non!
Et Marcotte quand même qui se met à l'attaque.
C'est
la meilleure façon, je pense, dans le moment d'être capable de tenir le round. Hein?
Et là, Marcotte qui continue à se ruer sur Hollett. Mais ses coups, on voit, manque beaucoup de force présentement. Et Hollett qui va de l'autre crochet de gauche. Marcotte qui rate la cible, chose qu'il ne faisait pratiquement pas au début de combat. Hollett qui se permet même un moment de répit pour cracher. C'est incroyable. Il semble se moquer de Marcotte présentement.
Oui,
mais faut dire qu'il tire encore derrière. Mais là, il s'est fait faire mal. Hein? Il y a une gauche de Marcotte qui semble-t-il lui a fait mal, mais il revient immédiatement. Et il fait mal à Marcotte à son tour, au corps, à la tête. Et Marcotte, il est solide, mais là, il est ébranlé. Est-ce qu'il va tomber? Comment fait-il se tenir debout? C'est incroyable. Et voilà, au plancher. Et là, la poule qui est debout, on donne le compte. Et Marcotte est immédiatement debout. Et la classe maintenant. Oh, incroyable. Et Fernand Père qui s'en va sur le ring chercher son fils pour l'amener dans le coin. Fernand qui titube, ne sait plus où il est. Et la minute de repos est très attendue, évidemment. Incroyable.
Et
Ralph Hollett,
je me demande ce qui se passe maintenant. On peut peut-être demander la disqualification. Le combat est fini.
Est-ce que c'est la fin?
Oui, oui. Marcotte, l'affaire
Fernand Père est allé sur le ring.
Oui.
Et c'est la fin, victoire de Ralph Hollett, c'est confirmé. Fred Deegan. Alors, dans quelques instants, nous aurons celui qui conserve sa couronne canadienne des poids moyens, Ralph Hollett en entrevue. Mais quel combat incroyable. Bernard Marcotte qui ne la cherche présentement sur le ring. Là, il y a beaucoup de gens. Bon, voilà, il était allé féliciter Hollett et Fernand qui est toujours très chancelant. Et en tout cas, chose certaine, je ne sais pas si c'est la fin de sa carrière, mais il aura tout donné jusqu'au bout. Et Ralph Hollett, le gars en qui personne ne croyait, est venu démontrer dans le ring du centre Paul Sauvé qu'il n'avait pas volé sa couronne canadienne des poids moyens. Et c'est à se demander maintenant qui pourra le vaincre. Parce qu'après ce qu'on a vu, si Fernand Marcotte n'a pas été capable de le vaincre, pour l'instant, est-ce qu'il y a un boxeur qui est capable de le faire? C'est pratiquement incroyable. On sait que éventuellement, il y a peut-être des boxeurs mi-moyens qui feront le saut dans la classe des poids moyens, qui sont excellents. Mais on a de sérieux doutes à savoir qui pourrait détrôner Ralph Hollett présentement, qui, comme on disait tantôt, s'améliore de combat en combat. Alors lui, ça lui fait une 10e victoire en 15 combats. Et là, présentement, bon, justement, on va revoir la fin du combat. Ça, c'est ce qui s'est passé depuis le 5e, en fait, le 4e, plutôt le 6e round. Ralph Hollett qui a pris l'initiative. Là, on voit les coups de masse, c'est vraiment incroyable. Marcotte qui n'en pouvait absolument plus. Et si son père est chauffé sur le ring à la fin, il le savait qu'il serait disqualifié, son fils. Et puis à ce moment-là, il savait qu'il n'y avait absolument plus rien à faire.
This championship in its entirety. Benny Briscoe of Philadelphia in a scheduled 10-rounder. Hollett, we learned after the fight was over, right here broke his knuckle on Briscoe's head. Middle finger of the right hand. Now, that happened in the second round, and he was virtually boxing with his left jab for 8 rounds. Now, Hollett did win the fight, a majority decision, meaning 2 of the 3 judges thought Hollett was, in fact, the winner. But in the ring, after the decision was announced, Hollett talked about his pain and how he had tried to just hang in there for 8 rounds.
It's so hard to throw this right hand. I had to move, you know. You know, it's something I don't like to do, but in order to win the fight, I had to move. That was it.
Did Benny Briscoe surprise you tonight?
No way. No, we knew he was tough. He'd never been knocked out. Man takes a hell of a punch. He takes the hardest hit I ever felt. I'll tell you that. Well, I got the proof.
Did he hurt you at all tonight?
No, he did. Never hurt me once.
Other than your right hand?
No.
I talked with Ralph Hollett just a few minutes ago. He tells me he'll be wearing a fiberglass cast that stays on for at least 3 weeks, and after that, in early July, look for Hollett to go after the British Commonwealth title. Semi-final of the...
Not surprisingly, the card was not particularly well attended, and I say not surprisingly because the card had been criticized almost from the day it was announced. Criticism aimed in large measure at the main event, which pitted former Canadian middleweight champion Ralph Hollett of Halifax against 39-year-old Benny Briscoe of Philadelphia.
Hollett's trainer, the veteran Tom McCluskey, hit the nail squarely on the head earlier in the day when he referred to his man as being in a damned if he does, damned if he doesn't situation. In other words, if Hollett defeated Briscoe, he'd be accused of beating up an old man. And if he lost to him, well, catastrophe. No other way to describe it, catastrophe in terms of Hollett's career. Now, quite obviously, that had to have been on Ralph's mind last night as the fight began, but give him credit for doing a good job of hiding it. He stuck to business, a cautious first round, and then here in the second, a gradual opening of the throttle, several good exchanges between the two, and certainly Benny Briscoe was never hard to find. He was standing in Hollett's face all night long. The high point in the fight for Hollett came late in the second round as he caught Briscoe with a bruising left-right combination to the head to stagger him, and then another hard left-right series to put him down. Briscoe obviously in some difficulty, and as referee Herb McMullen dutifully administered the mandatory count, the crowd waited expectantly for Hollett to wade right back in and finish the kill. But it did not happen. Hollett seemingly unwilling and or unable to take advantage of the situation. And it wasn't until several rounds later that we discovered why. In the sequence you just saw moments ago, Hollett sending Briscoe crashing to the canvas, Hollett shattered a knuckle in his right hand. He felt it pop, immediately felt the pain. The fact is that at that moment, Ralph Hollett became, in effect, a one-armed fighter. And so while Hollett had originally planned to slug it out with Briscoe, the injury obviously necessitated a change in tactics. Hollett forced to backpedal and go exclusively with his left hand for the remaining 8 rounds while trying to stay out of harm's way. Now, the crowd, obviously unaware of Hollett's injury, booed loudly for much of the remainder of the fight, and in point of fact, it was not a particularly entertaining fight to watch. But the bottom line to the whole thing has to be this: Ralph Hollett, while handicapped with a painful injury, had the patience, the determination, and the physical conditioning to go 8 rounds and win the fight. A courageous performance by the Halifax native, and make no mistake about it, he did win the fight. Now with a report on what happened on the undercard last night, here's Don Martin.
Football strike business, and Expo's going to visit Montreal. It's a fun town, and he always wins his fights there. The last night was fun for Ralph. No screaming heck for Eddie Milo. You see, Ralph rung Milo's bell in the 4th round.
Closest thing to a picket line was the meeting by striking Pittsburgh's team. Ralph Hollett of Halifax. Union solidarity seems strong. Like other players around the league, the same
showed great promise a couple of years ago, but whose career has been in decline of late. Milo wore fancy tight boxing trunks, pulled high to cover a bulging waistline. He was no match for Hollett, who put the finishing touches.
The NFL Management Council informed the 28 NFL teams that as of today, players should not.
Well, Ralph doesn't play NFL football. We apologize. We don't have that cut for you right now. But speaking of football, 4th round last night in Montreal, it was a TKO. Let's take a look at it again.
The secondary feature on last night's boxing card in Montreal saw former Canadian middleweight champion Ralph Hollett of Halifax score a convincing technical knockout over Toronto's Eddie Milo, a fighter who showed great promise a couple of years ago, but whose career has been in decline of late. Milo wore fancy tight boxing trunks, pulled high to cover a bulging waistline. He was no match for Hollett, who put the finishing touches to him with this flurry in the 4th round. Milo had been down in the 3rd, but was saved by the bell. In the 4th, he went down again, seemed to be out of it, got back on his feet, but it was no contest, and Hollett scored a TKO. And referee Fred...
A capacity crowd on hand to watch the action, and they saw lots of it. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. Following a loss by Dartmouth's Sonny Wicks and a win by New Waterford's Timmy Mason in the curtain raisers, the junior member of the Fighting Hollett family moved into the ring, middleweight Eddie, seen here in the white trunks. His opponent, sporting the spare tire midriff, was Toronto native Bob Green, a boxer of questionable talent, but I'll tell you what a gifted clown. His dancing belly and wobbly knees routine had the crowd in an uproar. Eddie Hollett was probably the only man in the building who was not amused. Green's outrageous antics blew up in his face only once during the fight. That happened here in the 3rd round when Hollett was finally able to measure his man for a moment and rattle him with a stiff left hand. The corpulent Torontonian went to the canvas, took an 8 count, and then continued as though nothing had happened. As it turned out, the fight went the distance. No question about the winner, Eddie Hollett, by unanimous decision. And even then, the playful Bob Green got the last laugh as he hoisted, or tried to hoist, Hollett high into the air. In the semifinal, it was undefeated Rick Anderson of Halifax in the blue trunks with white stripes against another Toronto boxer, Bob Boscombe. 4th round action here, Anderson having it all his own way as Boscombe bleeds freely from a vicious cut under his left eye, and Anderson is able to pummel him almost at will. The ring doctor examines Boscombe between rounds, declares him unfit to continue, and Rick Anderson has another victory under his belt. Which brings us to the main event, the Commonwealth middleweight scrap, Britain's Roy Gums at a sleek 159 pounds versus Halifax's Ralph Hollett right at the middleweight ceiling of 160 pounds. No doubt about it, Hollett dominated the proceedings through the first 4 rounds of the fight and had Gums in serious trouble on at least 2 occasions. Here in round 3, Hollett is pressing and finally sends Gums to the canvas with a crushing left hook. Gums was to admit later that he'd been badly dazed by that blow, and in fact he said he considered himself fortunate just to have survived the round. We move now to action in round 5. Hollett still in control, but not for long. He allows himself to be backed into a corner, and that's when it happened. Gums unloads with a bruising uppercut. Hollett is stunned by the blow, and as he desperately attempts to defend himself, Gums pounds him with a series of lefts and rights that eventually topple Hollett and leave him draped across the ring ropes. Referee Guy Jutras of Montreal quite rightly decides that Hollett cannot continue. The fight is stopped, and Roy Gums is the new Commonwealth middleweight champion. Later, Ralph Hollett tried to explain just what had gone wrong.
Well, I think I got slack. I had things under control, and he caught me with a good right hand, and that was it. You know, that's the fight game.
You seem to be so much in control through the first 4 rounds, Ralph. Did you get lackadaisical, or what was it?
I think I probably did. I felt very at ease, and I felt like I had him. And he, you know, threw that good punch in there, and you get caught off guard like that, and that's it. It's game over.
Roy Gums, on the other hand, offered this analysis of the knockout.
Well, I caught him with the right hand, and it was a clean shot. If he was good enough not to show that I'd hurt him, you know, I might have been a bit more confused, but I knew it was a clean shot, and if I can hit a man clean, you know, I know that he's in trouble. I don't think there's a man in the world that can go 15 rounds with me without me catching him once. And that once, that'll turn the whole fight. People don't realize, you know, my punching power. I think Hollett was a bit deceived by, you know, my lean looks, but I think it's the punching power that done it for me, yeah?
The new middleweight boxing champion of the Commonwealth, Britain's Roy Gums.
Well, that's the way it was last night at the fights in Dartmouth. We have one other boxing note. That scheduled closed circuit showing this Friday night at the Metro Center of the Marvin Hagler-Tony Simpson middleweight fight has been canceled. Ticket sales very poor here in the metro area. The promoters electing to pull the plug. Now, if you're one of those that had already purchased a ticket, you can get a full refund at the Metro Center.
Pretty good right hand there by Celestine. Partially deflected, but caught Spinks on the forehead.
The U.S. Open is an
Bryson to the left. That's Percy Richardson across the way. Rabbi Lee, the gentleman wearing glasses. And it is Lee doing most of the talking in Michael Spinks' corner right now. And we get the whistle, which indicates we're ready now for round 6 as Celestine stands up from his stool and walks to the center of the ring. Jimmy Rondo, out of the state of Washington. Seattle is the referee. He's been almost silent so far during this fight. 5 rounds. He's a good one. There's that short right hand by Celestine to the face of Michael Spinks. The fight is fairly close. At least I think it is. The referee does not have a ballot. Bob Lee, the New Jersey State Boxing Commissioner, representative here, Jersey Joe Walcott, of course, serves in the capacity of Bob Lee, the assistant commissioner, and the WBA representative, a gentleman from Canada, Mr. Murray Sleep, out of Halifax. Celestine misses with a big right. Spinks misses with his big right. Comes after him with a succession of jabs. Trying to get him off balance, trying to load up a big one on him. Celestine with a right-hand lead. Spinks misses with a big right. Uppercut by Michael Spinks. Misses. Hard shot to the body by Spinks. Comes across with the right hand to the side of Celestine's head. Spinks is really digging hard to the body. We are in round 6, just passing the halfway point. Scheduled for 15. Wicked uppercut, hard right hand by Spinks. Stinging Celestine. Spinks howls into him now, sensing that his man is hurt. Celestine doesn't yield. Jerry stands right there, throws a right-hand lead, but misses and takes a hard shot to the body. Left hand to the face of Celestine as he bounced off the rope. So far in the round, Celestine has not been able to find Spinks with a right-hand lead. Got him there with a short hook. tough round for Jerry Celestine. As Michael Spinks has pretty well dominated the 6th round. It is about this point in all of his title defenses that I have seen, and I've seen them all, that he starts to come on. He gets tougher. You get into round 7, 8, and that's as far as we've seen him go. Watch the uppercut. It definitely hurt Jerry Celestine, though he didn't yield. He came over the top with the right hand, again stinging him, but once again, Celestine refused to yield any real estate. The ring is 19-6, and they did not use a whole lot of it that time. Watch Spinks trying to load up, and he's not getting it over the top very often, except this particular round he did. So let's see whether or not he is able to maintain what he established there in round number 6. Roddy McDonald, the young Canadian from Toronto who came in here today with a record of 22-1, went against the veteran Cornell Chavis out of New York at 15-6, and seemed to have the fight pretty well in hand, but the Canadian bomber got blasted himself at 43 seconds of the 7th round and knocked cold by Chavis in what most people here consider a considerable upset. Michael Spinks would seemingly be in the lead at the moment in his 4th defense of his WBA 175-pound championship. But it might have been the last round that swung it that way. One of the things you might have noticed during the moments in the corners, you see gentlemen in suits, civilian clothes, dressed, standing up there wearing badges. Those are members or inspectors of the Boxing Commission. Spinks now starting to find Celestine again with some combinations. Jerry getting one good left hand to the face of Spinks. The right hand lead has been his most effective punch. But Spinks' left hand has been constantly in Celestine's face. Halfway point, round 7. Two lefts. The right by Jerry is short. The short left hook by Spinks. As we go inside a minute. Spinks picking off Celestine's combination there. Celestine backs into a neutral corner and fights his way out of it. 20 seconds to go in round 7. Spinks still working some to the body. He's going with heavy stuff. This round pretty close. Fight pretty close. Good right hand by Celestine.
When it comes to video games, nobody compares to Atari.
I find him to go now to round 8. WBA light heavyweight championship fight. Michael Spinks defending against Jerry Celestine. Spinks out of Philadelphia, Celestine out of New Orleans. Neither man really showing any marks so far. Spinks with that left trying to set up his right, and Celestine escaped it. There's a hard right to the body by Spinks. Left hand pops into his face. Celestine escaped totally. left coming off an 80-inch reach by Spinks is really lethal. Good left hook by both men. Short uppercut by Celestine, popping Spinks' head up. Brings the right over the top. Spinks scoring with it to the jaw of Celestine. A pair of tough, raw-boned, light heavyweights hammering away at each other. Spinks nails him with an uppercut. Celestine is hit with 2 more right hands and goes down. He is in Spinks' corner. 1:05 to go in the fight. It is over as Jimmy Rondo counts through 10. And Jerry Celestine was caught by an uppercut and 2 more right hands. And he's terribly upset over the turn of things right now as Les Bonanno comes across. Jimmy Rondo, the referee, counted through to 10 and waved it off because he didn't get apparently any response at all from Celestine. So with crashing suddenness, the fight stops in the 8th round as Michael Spinks continues to stop the opposition. There's the uppercut right there. And Celestine wobbles. Spinks nailed him on the jaw with another right hand. A glancing left as he goes down. And the count went right through to 10. Again, you see the uppercut, the right hand, the glancing left. And it all happened right in Michael Spinks' corner. Celestine had been pounded pretty well in the 6th round, had come back well in the 7th round. And then all of a sudden in the 8th round, boom, it was over. One 1:58 of the 8th round.
Seconds of the 8th round. The winner and still World Boxing Association light heavyweight champion. Let's have a big hand from Michael Spinks.
Michael Spinks at 1:58 of the 8th round. It goes in the books officially as a TKO. And so Jerry Celestine gave him a fight. He expected that Celestine would do just that. And it was a crushing right-hand uppercut followed by another right and then a glancing left. All to the head of Celestine that brought it to an end at 1:58 of the 8th round. And his brother Leon Spinks is now in the ring with him. We'll be talking to Michael Spinks as soon as he comes down out of the ring from the crowd of well-wishers, and we'll also have a chance to see the great Lupe Pintor in his latest defense of the WBC Bantamweight Championship. We'll be right back. Atlantic City, and sitting with the man who is still wearing the championship belt, the WBA light heavyweight champion of the world, Michael Spinks. Michael, I thought you were in a good, tough, close fight until that 8th.
Yes, I was. I was in a very tough, grueling fight. It was a mind match. It was mental all the way. I had worked with Jerry numerous of times. He helped prepare me for Mustafa Muhammad. So he's a similar fighter to Mustafa. And I had to watch out for that counter right hand, which, as you saw earlier, he hit me with it, and it kind of shook me up. But I was able, in condition and everything, I was able to grab myself and realize what he was doing again.
I thought perhaps you might have stung him in the 6th round. He seemed to show a little weariness, but he came right back in the 7th.
He showed every bit of weariness throughout the fight. Once I started landing pretty good punches, but he's just not that type of fighter like Mustafa. Yeah. You can't go off of a look that he gives you. And normally I tell by the redness of the eyes or the way they move in the ring, but I just had to be patient because I worked with him so many times before, and it's just dangerous for me.
There is a place for patience in everything in athletics.
Yes, it is, and I'm one that learned to be very patient.
Let's take a look at some pictures of the win, and it came with crashing suddenness. In your corner, You see him getting a little wild there. Then you straighten him up. There's the one that started it. It was a powerful uppercut. Looked like he had all the leverage in the world on it, followed by the right and the glancing left.
Yes, it was. That was the Sphinx Jinx in slow motion, as you all see. He was just, you can see he countered with the right hand over my jab. And I was just able to loop the uppercut a couple of times, which is the Sphinx Jinx. And I tried to land it as flush as possible, and the left hook caught him on the way down, which was a beautiful combination, I think.
I thought Jimmy Rondo, the referee, first off, I thought he did a good job because I hardly noticed he was there.
He did a dynamite job. Very professional.
Yeah. But I thought counting on through to 10, since there was no reaction at all from Jerry, I thought was the very fair thing to do.
Yes, it was. He seemed to be very out of it, you know, very much out of it in the corner. And he just seemed like he was very disappointed because he didn't know what hit him, you know. So it was a good fight, and I give all the praise and honor and the glory to my good Lord and Savior who has carried me through once again. I'd like to say hello to all my fans in upstate New York, Albany.
Michael, one more question now. You're the manager. That's the way it's in the book. You're your own manager. What's next? What's next?
I'll continue to defend. I let my promoter, Butch Lewis, which is a very good man in my corner. And I just like to let everybody know this is my promoter.
All right.
The best in the business. I'd like to say hello to my brother, Kenneth. Wherever you may be at this time, I love you, and don't ever forget it. Hello to my hometown, St. Louis. All over the world, I love you all, and thanks for your support.
All right, Michael.
Thanks to ABC for everything, and mainly grossing where I prepare myself. For all of it.
Good luck to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Good to see you again.
All right, good to see you.
Michael Spinks retaining his WBA light heavyweight championship with a crushing knockout of Jerry Celestine in the 8th round at 158. In a few moments, we're going to have a look at Lupi Pintor, one of the great ones, against Sung Hoon Lee. But right now, let's go to New York and spend a moment with Jim Lampley.
Once again, I'm Jim Lampley in ABC Sports Control in New York. You have seen Michael Spinks run his record to 21-0 with that successful title defense against Jerry Celestine. We are going to be rejoining Keith Jackson for a look at the Lupe Pintor-Sung Hoon Lee fight. But first, this story. The burial of a baseball legend took place today in Kansas City, Missouri.
This afternoon, Michael Spinks stopped Jerry Celestine, TKO 158 of the 8th round to retain his WBA light heavyweight championship. Right now, we're going to go back to June 3rd and show you some action from Lupi Pintor's defense of his WBC Bantamweight Championship. It took place in the Olympic Arena in Los Angeles, California. The challenger, Sung Hoon Lee, out of Seoul, Korea, the top-rated challenger against the great Mexican boxer Pintor. We will pick up the action in the 5th round of their 118-pound championship fight. Round 5, Pintor and Sung Hoon Lee. Julio Hernandez has the final word to the champion Lupi Pintor as he answers the bell, and he comes right out and goes again to the body. He wants to slow down this quick-footed Korean, I would presume. That's what he has in mind. I would think if Pintor does move up to 122 pounds, there are going to be a lot of people in that bantamweight division applauding because he has been so dominant and so active. He's given everybody who deserved a chance, this being his 8th defense, and he only won the title in 7-9. But if he does move up to 122 pounds and get the chance against Wilfredo Gomez, as Lee threw the right, coming off the left hook and landed it. That second right was a little bit short, tries to uppercut the champion there, so Lee's very active here in the 5th round. The successor for Pintor probably would come from Kiko Bienes and Albert Davila, both having won bouts so long ago that we saw Pintor and Davila in Las Vegas. He was a dandy, but Pintor eventually wore him down and won the fight. Sung Hoon Lee very active for the first minute of this 5th round, and now Pintor trying to take the play away from him, but the Korean goes flat-footed with him and stings him with a combination of the head as we hit the halfway point of round number 5. hand comes over the top by Pintor. The left hand was picked off by Sung Hoon Lee. Got a minute to go in round 5. Out of the back of the building for Lee's failure to mix it, but he mixes it right now, and Pintor goes down from a right hand. He hit him with a left hook, a right, and then came back with a solid right, and Lupe Pintor sat down, a little startled by it, and he's rubbing his head, indicating the man is butting me, but he didn't butt him when he knocked him down. A right hand put him down. And Lee now trying to cash in on the opportunity of the closing seconds of round 5. But Pintor comes back with a solid right hand to the Korean's head. So the champion goes to the corner. And there is immediate registration of concern of the champion's corner as he was surprised by the right hand. The second one was a dandy. Landed flush on the jaw of Pintor. And though when he stood up to take the count, he complained to Rudy Jordan about the butts. He felt there's been more than one. One was very visible, and the referee spoke to both fighters about it. Look at it in slow motion now. Pintor in the red trunks. There's the first right hand high on the side of the head, another right hand a little lower, and then that one on the button, and Pintor sat down. And the referee stepped in, and as he stood up, Pintor started his complaint about the butting. So obviously, he had all of his faculties as he regained his feet. So here we go now to round number 6. And let's see whether or not Sung Hoon Lee can maintain the pace that he established there in the 5th round. The second round was a good one for the Korean challenger, and obviously so was the 5th. That sort of tended to quiet down the folks in the back of the house who'd been hooting at Sung Hoon Lee for not mixing it up. Pintor digging to the body, brings the right over the top. They're both good. That right hand was picked off. Lee's head back again. Right hand again comes over the top and scores for Pintor. Another right hand by Pintor. Brings the left from underneath and scores with it. So far, the 6th round has been all Pintor. There's a short right by Sung Hoon Lee and another one. Didn't seem to have a lot on it, but they found the mark. Halfway point, round 6. Solid combination. Going off the right hand lead by Pintor. He'll do that once in a while. Lead with the right. And he can hurt you with the left hook. Continues to work to the body. Sung Hoon Lee trying to stay as active as he can. Trying to keep Pintor from loading up on him. Lupe had him on the ropes there for a moment and hit him with a solid left. Lee now almost flat-footed for a moment, but then backs up and comes back in, trying to dig to the body. But Pintor shrugs it off. He comes back with a combination that misses. There's a good left hook by Pintor. Goes again to the head. And another left hand by the champion. It is a wicked punch. So it's all Pentor. After being knocked down in the 5th, he comes storming back in the 6th.
When Dave's company transferred him to L.A., it was up to me to pack up the kids and...
Defending his WBA light heavyweight championship against the challenge of Jerry Celestine. We've been watching now Lupe Pentor from a fight June 3rd against Sung Hoon Lee, a fight in which the great Mexican bantamweight champion was down in the 5th round. Now we're going to pick up the action in the 11th round when the fight comes to a dramatic close. Lupe Pentor and Sung Hoon Lee, the 11th round. The bell upcoming for the 11th round. And the big crowd at the Olympic now sensing this fight is about over. Pentor so dominant from the 5th round on when he was put down by the challenger. It is not easy for a young man to come from Seoul, Korea to Los Angeles to go against a Latin champion knowing full well that he is going to have the house on his side. But this youngster has been a gamer and has given it his best. But the fight is clearly now controlled by Lupe Pentor. Just target practice. Rudy Jordan, the referee, now getting closer and closer to them. Looking hard, steps in and stops the fight. He took a good look at Sung Hoon Lee and said, that's enough. And he stops the fight at 46 seconds of the 11th round. And so 27-year-old Lupe Pentor of Mexico City is successful in his 8th defense of the championship that he won in June of 1979 from his stablemate Carlos Zarate. It'll be interesting to see whether or not Pentor does go ahead. I would certainly not think that he will walk away from his championship at 118 pounds unless he has some degree of promise that he's going to be able to make some money at the next weight level. Because this being a $175,000 payday for him, he just simply, at 27 years of age and at the top of your game, you don't go walking away from it. So that is a decision I would think that is left for the future. But certainly, Pentor in this bout against the top challenger in the WBC rankings, Sung Hoon Lee, was so dominant, so punishing, and still